Welcome to the Revolution Church podcast.
Stuck with the long shot again until I get the iPhone 28 or whatever, 15 or 13. But that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. So if you can hear me, just say good morning. I see there's two of you here. If not, there might be audio issues. I hope not. Good morning. All right, so I'm going to take that as you can hear me. You can hear the words coming out of my mouth. Man, my glasses are always so dirty. How has everyone's week been? Sorry I missed you guys last week. I don't know what was going on. I was just like super sick. And I tested negative for COVID. But it felt like COVID. It was like super, like I just couldn't get energy, like I just was like up for like 2 minutes and felt like I had just ran a marathon or something. It was really wild. And it was like 3 or 4 days, and I thought I would be able to just crank out a talk the next day, and I still just horrifically sluggish. So yeah, that was a lot. We have got a lot to get into today. I have been doing a lot more reading than usual. So, are you guys ready for Thanksgiving, by the way? Isn't that that's next? That's Thursday. And school is out. I'm going to a soccer game. Little soccer game after this. And school's out. And it is Thanksgiving. So, always a fun time to go around and be with your relatives. I saw a meme the other day. It was like, do you think like your conservative relatives are like, oh no, my open-minded uncle is coming to dinner this week? I'm sure they do. I know they do, because I haven't been the open-minded uncle who has not been invited to dinner. Yeah. Guess it was it a year ago that I don't know. I think I maybe tried to visit my dad a year ago during Thanksgiving, and it didn't work out. But I wasn't sure if it was Thanksgiving or not. But anyhow, that's another trauma for another day. So I've been reading more. I've gone back and started reading the beginning again of Todd McGowan's book on Hegel. I've also finished reading Tillich's book that we went through, for some reason, my search for ultimate meaning or something. I don't have the book in front of me, but so I finished that, and it's incredible, and I think we're going to talk a little bit more about that next week. But like I said, I've been going through Todd McGowan's work on contradiction. I just want to continue to learn more and more about contradiction because I find it to be really interesting. But this is kind of a side note. Today's talk is I was really inspired by some of his words about capitalism and what that does to us, and often how we maybe miss it. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. So buckle in. And you may have seen they made what they call a soft announcement that the Tammy Faye musical is coming to Broadway, America. So it'll be in New York, and I saw it in London and was really touched by it. There are irreverent moments, so if you're super sensitive, you might not want to go, but they're hilarious, you know. If you grew up Christian and are used to like Christian people making fun of Christianity, there's some of those typical like, you know, like Jesus wants us inside him, you know, that kind of thing, you know, where they're like, oh, isn't that funny? We've been laughing at it for years, folks. But it's really well done. I mean, I was like a mess afterwards. It was really touching. And there's some just really some cool scenes in that thing, just like an imaginary of what happens when mom goes to heaven and things like that. And that was just kind of, you know, what a life to live to see where someone does that and puts that on. And, you know, it was really incredible. So I must have not wanted to do today's talk because it must have been some sort of Freudian slip that I had this morning, because I have hundreds of pins, okay? Hundreds. My pins. I put pins in cases everywhere. And grab my backpack, put everything in it, march off to get my corporate iced tea. And I have one. I found one pen, thank goodness, one pen that barely wrote, and finally got it to write better. But I was thinking that that's been my unconscious just being like, you don't want to do it. Don't do that talk today. Or maybe it was the spirit of capitalism saying, don't do it. We're so entrenched in a way of thinking that even our unconscious gets into our unconscious. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. The system that I never thought I would be questioning, and that I'd grown up hearing other punk rockers talk about and thought, oh, it's cute, but that's just the way life is. And, you know, we all have to deal with it. Because, I mean, I was already like, you know, I mean, my first job at like 12, and I got paid under the table for working at the skateboarding store. That's long gone now, so they won't get in trouble, but it was in Fort Mill. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. And I think, you know, my family, everybody like my family thought capitalism was America, and that's what made us Americans, and that's what made us somehow free and special. Now I realize what my teachers were telling me when I was in high school. You'll understand when you grow up. And what they meant was, is you'll understand that when you grow up that you're going to have to pay bills, and not a lot of people are going to give a damn. And it's going to be really, really tough. And you're going to have kids for some crazy reason through all that, and still try to survive, and realize that, you know, you can't afford to get sick, and you can't afford to have sick kids, and you can't afford to, you know, have your teeth fall out, or you can't afford to have bad eyesight, or you can't afford, you know, it's just, or now it's like, or groceries, or gas, or, you know. Did you guys see the one where they, what was it, the cartoon? We're going to talk about a few cartoons today, but at least one more. But, you know, the Sneeds, the guy who made the Sneeds, and because it cutting down all the trees, the Dr. Seuss books, and in the cartoon version, the guy has built a new city where he charges for air, you know, like they charge air, and he doesn't want trees because trees make oxygen, you know, and they all sing this song because the kid sneaks in a seed and plants the tree. Spoiler alert. And the kids sing the song, let it live, and then, of course, the capitalistic guy who's like making all this money off the air starts singing, let it die, let it die, let it die, let it die. And I thought that was really funny. Another thing is, through my job hunt, I got turned down by a couple grocery stores. I'm hoping that this is just like some sort of weird holiday effect, that right now they're just like, we've got all these holiday people, so we're not hiring anybody. But I was remembering that movie, Sid and Nancy. I don't know if you saw the movie Sid and Nancy, but and I was talking to this I was talking to my girlfriend about this and said, I said, I said, do you remember that part? And she goes, oh, I need a job. I want a good job. I need a job. Oh, it is. I need a job that meets my artistic needs. I want a job. I want a good job. I want a job. It's really hilarious. I put it on my Twitter. You can Google it and watch it on YouTube. You could watch it now if you want. I mean, it is. I don't know why that has been in my head. Well, that meets my artistic needs. And he's talking to Johnny Rotten. Obviously, it's probably a very made up moment, but that's been in my head. Anyhow, speaking of capitalism, it's all around us. It's everywhere. It's like the Holy Spirit. And a lot of you are rolling your eyes right now because I'm saying this and thinking, oh, like I did. Well, it's funny when you grow up and you change and you look back at moments of things when you rolled your eyes. Like, I don't feel like I can and this is going to make some of you really angry, but it's to make a point because it used to make me really angry at one time. Remember when Al Gore was running, and then the Green Party guy was running, who never combed his hair. Gosh, what was his name? I can't remember right now. But or was always like, he just needed to comb. His hair was always like, and and people were like, I'm voting for Green Party. I was like, oh, you're just giving it to the Republicans when you do that. You're just giving it to the Republicans when you vote third party. You can't do that. There's too much at stake. You want George Bush to be your president, and getting really mad about it. And now it's like, I just don't feel like I can vote for Joe Biden, and definitely can't vote for Donald Trump, and it's like, and now I'm one of those people. And it's crazy when your convictions grow and the things, how you feel about things grow and your understanding grows. But what I think's cool about that is holding on to those moments of when you were there and that's where empathy comes in. Okay. That's where understanding comes in, is going like, oh wait, I've been at that point. So I don't need to be an asshole about it. What I need to be is understanding about it and have a good conversation about it. And a good talk about it. It's so funny when I say things, and the fact that they have people, they put the number of people, that someone leaves every time I say something crazy, but I know it's probably just because I wanted to go watch that fun video. But I'm such a sensitive soul. Oh, they came back, thank goodness. Maybe they just watched that video. But yeah, that's where empathy comes in, is when we grow and when we change and realizing oh, I felt that way and I used to get mad at me. I understand. I understand where they're coming from. I've done that, tried to do that as a parent. I try to do that as a friend. I try to do that as whatever I am now, pastor, leader, friend, whatever this is, this weird line in your television with me in the middle, or computer or phone or wherever you're watching, to live in that moment. But I'm going to look at some of, I just wrote down some quotes that I really liked from Todd McGowan's book, and just some of the stuff he was saying. And it's funny because I do better if I just am able to see things and stuff. And so I've been trying to write down quotes now, rather than just read them for books, because it helps me learn more, helps me stick in my brain. But this is also something that we're going to talk about. So this is also going to be a lightning rod right now, is we're talking about identity as well. So I feel like even just saying that I'm talking about capitalism kind of blows the twist of the end. But we're also going to be talking about identity and what that is. And so that's how we're going to start. So don't get confused when I go right into talking about that as first. And otherness. And I like this, the Todd McGowan uses the word otherness. He goes, without differing on otherness or without differing on otherness, a something has no distinctiveness. Now I like this because it's almost like we're in Dr. Seuss right now. Without defining an otherness, a something has no distinctiveness. It's not distinctive from one thing. Like if I just say, well, there's a bunch of trees, then you just think trees. But then when I'm like, oh, well, there's a redwood, and then there's a fern or whatever, I don't know trees very well, then there's a difference. Or if I go, oh, it's that man over there, and there's a bunch of men and women. Well, like, okay, well, it's not the women, I'm guessing. So it's the man. Well, which man is it? And It's the portly balding man. Oh, the portly balding man, which, you know, whatever. Not probably what you want to hear, but that's how a lot of people would say, you know, or it's the black man. Why does it got to be a black man? Well, because I'm explaining how what the person is. And, okay, well, there's 3 black guys. Which black guy is the guy in the black suit? You know, whatever. So whatsoever, if something has no distinctiveness whatsoever, and this is Todd saying it, and bleeds together with it bleeds together with everything else. So that's kind of the idea of when without differing, we bleed together, we become, you know, one of the humans over there. That's it. You know, what do you know about this person? Well, they're human. Well, what is there anything particular about them? Oh, no, that's all I know. They're human. Good luck. Another quote that he talks about goes, the otherness, and this is, and I'm reading because this is commentary on Hegel. So we're really getting like Hegelian information from one of the best Hegelian teachers, in my personal opinion. This is what we're getting through. So this is Hegelian thoughts on otherness as well. So I need to give that. So you're getting me interpreting a guy who's interpreting a guy. So there you go. The otherness intervenes is the definition of something to critique, the distinction, that constitutes it. So when the otherness intervenes, it is the definition of something to create. You know, so we create something else when the otherness comes into this. Another thing he says is the otherness begins as merely an external point of reference. So the otherness. So like, oh, the man, the guy with the green hat, the star on it. You know, oh, is he communist? Oh, I don't know. What was that hat? You know, I just think it looks cool, dudes, and dudettes. But you know, like the otherness over there. So the otherness intervenes. So all of a sudden, we're not others, but now it intervenes when it goes, well, there's the woman, and there's the man, and there's you know, an Asian person, and there is a black person, and there is you know, they them or whatever. You know, whatever. You know, there's a punk rocker with the purple hair. Well, maybe they're a punk rocker, you know, because you go, oh, I'm not a punk rocker. I'm goth, you know, whatever. And so we start to get these otherings of how we other people. And then a lot of us go, I like it. I like the otherness. Like when I was a skateboarder, and, you know, I like to be called, I'm a skater. You know, I thought skateboarders were just the top, you know. But then, you know, when I was a very self-righteous Christian, I used to have a sticker that says, I'm not a punk, I'm a Christian, you know, whatever. I loved all that kind of stuff. You know, the identifiers, the otherness. How do I other myself, and how do I really, really lean into the otherness of my otherness? How do I become, you know, I think of that Green Day song, I want to be a minority, down with the moral majority, because I want to be a minority. You know, so it's the idea of like we all want to be different. We all kind of want to have this otherness. You know, they're somewhere along the lines, you know, being mainstream wasn't cool anymore, man. And so otherness plays into this. And then Tillich talks about otherness and contradiction and how they play together. And so we're kind of playing on those concepts in a very simple idea. So the otherness intervenes and is the definition of something to create. It's the distinction that constitutes it or them or us. He's using objects here. I'm using people. The otherness begins as merely an external point of reference and ends up, now listen to this, it ends up as a definitive for how we identify something, and then I put in little parentheses, or someone. So the external, so the otherness begins as merely as an external point of, like, oh, there's a bunch of cars. Oh, it's a red car. Oh, it's a Honda. Oh, it's a Honda Accord. It's a Honda Accord 2.0, and it's a 1999 Honda Accord 2.0, which I don't know if that 2.0 is a thing. But, you get what I'm saying. And so the otherness begins as merely an external point of reference and ends up being definitive for how we identify something or someone. So me going like, I'm a punk, I'm a Christian, that's how I want to be identified. And so we all go like, I want to be identified as this. And we see a lot today with, pronouns and people who are like, well, I'm a person of this and I am this and this. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those things, but what I'm saying is this is where how otherness kind of starts to happen, okay? And I'm a Republican, and I'm a Democrat, and I'm a conservative Republican, and then I'm a liberal Democrat. I'm a middle ground Democrat. I'm a fiscal Republican. I'm a, all this stuff, all these identifiers, all these these external points of reference start, if they're not external, then they make them verbal, so they become external points of reference so we know who people are, and then we can kind of judge accordingly. And one of the things we're good at is judging folks and judging communities and judging each other. And then realizing that that's bad, and then defending a community that's been overjudged, and then we turn around, and this was in the Tillich book. I wish I would have had that today, but I didn't do much with that because I felt like there was another talk there. But there's this thing where we turn around and we almost become that which we don't, and then we other the other, so we go, oh, they othered these people, so now we've got to other these, and it's but we have these external points of reference. I think that's why slavery worked so well, is that you had all these slave owners being like, well, they don't look like us, they don't sound like us, and and when they come in speaking a different language, well, their language, we're gonna have to teach them our language, and then they're not like, and then they started going like, they're not even really human, they're subhuman. They're human beasts, and they have like this indention in the back of their, they had all this bullshit to sell to other these folks to justify free labor, and to unfortunately build a country on, and to bring incredible wealth. It's amazing how wealthy you'll become when you don't have to pay people. And so there becomes the otherness. But what happens in time is slavery is outlawed when, of course, we realize, like, black and white people are human beings. We're all human beings. There's nothing different going on there. Sometimes progressives will be like, well, they'll grab a group of people and say, oh, they're special because they've been through, and I get it. But what I'm saying is we're all humans, okay? We have different customs. We've gone through different things. My African American, my black brothers and sisters have gone through a lot because of slavery and because of racism and the things like this. But the fact is like when we use racism, when other people use racism, they create something to be afraid of, and they based on an external judgment. Well, I'm going to be afraid of them externally, because of an external judgment, and because they maybe live in poverty. And well, the reason they're in poverty is because of your external judgment. This is what's happened over the years, is because what we did. We in slavery, but then we said we can't eat in the same room together and drink out of the same water fountain. I mean, there's external things at play. They're not having the same economic. There's no equality here. Anyway, so it's complicated, and so there's contradictions here. So this is not a binary thinking talk right now. This isn't where I'm going to go like, this is wrong and this is right and this is what you do. If you're looking for like a binary thinking type of talk or sermon, I bet you there's 1,000 of those at least going on this morning, but it's not happening here because I'm non-binary in my thinking. So, yes, no, maybe. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Here we go. So capitalism depends on the subject regarding themselves as an isolated being whose identity does not involve otherness. So this is what capitalism does, and it's pretty groovy, man. And you can almost see how some of the hippies who like kind of gave up hippiness and became like, corporate leaders and corporate bosses justify their working, um, is with capitalism, and you might disagree on this, and that's great because that's what we do here. Because what we do when we disagree well. And what do we do when we disagree well? We learn. We learn more, and I learn more, and that's great. But Todd McGowan's opinion on what Hegel is saying on capitalism depends on the subject regarding themselves as an isolated being whose identity does not involve otherness. And so what they want basically you to do, and this is where I'm going to say capitalism and Christianity are similar. Oh my gosh, and there's going to be a huge contradiction here. So you got to be ready and sit down and be prepared for the end, because this is one of those times where it might be helpful to use and see how the other is using something and return the favor a little bit. So see, there's no just black and white answers here. I wish there was, like now I'm going to say like, oh, well, now we're going to kind of do what the others are doing, but I think there's a way to do that when we see something good and someone we don't agree with, we can maybe take the good and leave the bad. I mean, that's what I always did in AA is, you take what you need and leave the rest. There's certain things that just didn't work for me. So capitalism depends, I'm going to say it again, the subject regarding themselves as an isolated being whose identity does not involve otherness. So now you're going to like, well, why do they pay women less and things like that? And we can get into all sorts of like, ideas and thoughts of, oh, women have children and they're in the workplace and this. It's not really where we're pointing at today, but it's a good conversation worth having. But I think with capitalism is that they will pay anybody less that they can. I just think that ultimately identity in some ways for capitalists doesn't become a thing until it becomes like, oh, well, now I have to have a diverse group of people because it hurts my company when I don't. So, well, oh God, we have to pay women equally. Well, I mean, it's best for the company, or, oh, we need to have more faces of color. Yes. Did you get those pictures on the pamphlet on the envelope of all the people of color having fun? Yeah, well, we actually have to hire folks who look different than us. Oh, okay. Now that can be anybody. I mean, that could be any race. I'm not just going to pick on the white race here. That could be anybody's thing. Is like, well, we got to have diversity. We got to, Pride Month will hang the gay flag, right? Yeah. But do we care if the workers are gay? No, we just want them to produce, because that's the whole point of capitalism is that we make more money, But in order to make money, we've got to put the flag up. We've got to do whatever, what about religion? No, religion, we can't touch religion, that's not good. Then they go like, well, hey, I got an idea, we'll put this transgender person to sell their beer, and then it backfires, you know what I mean? And then they're like, oh, what do we do? Well, we own all the beer companies now, so we'll just kind of distance ourselves from ourselves. This is capitalism, okay, folks? This is like confusing. There's so much contradiction within the capitalistic world, it is crazy. And the otherness, because otherness to them is about the bottom line. It's always about the bottom line. And the hardest lesson I've learned through people who love even my family and things like that is it's not about, at the end of the day, it's not about like, oh, you're a son, oh, we cherish, it's about the bottom line, man. And it's tough to learn, Ultimately, even everybody else is thinking about the bottom line. Like, I've had friendships fall out because it was about, there was money involved and it was about the bottom line, and the bottom line was more important. So you just have to take it on the chin, I'm not sure who Adam Smith is, but Adam Smith recognizes that labor is the source of value. And this is just now, so now I'm a guy talking about a guy, talking about a guy, talking about a guy. But I like this, and I'll look up more about Mr. Smith later, but recognizes that labor is the source of value. But come on, we do Christianity. I mean, the Gospels are like, 40, 60 years old, so I think we do a lot of guys talking about guys, talking about guys, talking about guys, right? Or guy, man, person, human, blah, 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 tradition. Recognizes that labor is the source of value, but he conceptualizes the exchange between the labor and the capitalist as an exchange between two independent self-serving beings. As a result, the capitalist has no responsibility for the miserable situation of the laborer. Did you hear that? So, if, and I see this like all the times with like, like landlords and things like that. They're like, I'm not responsible for your job. I'm not responsible that you got in trouble at work. I'm not, to me, it's just about, you got to pay your rent on time. That's it. This is a professional relationship. There is no emotion and no understanding here. There is not a break. Most people are that way in the business world, and that's how you make successful business. That's why I've never been really good at business. Probably why I'm not very good at working for the man, or why they don't want to hire me. I don't know. That could be an excuse. I don't know. It could be that I misspell my applications or something. I'm not sure because of my dyslexia. I could be doing some sort of Freudian unconscious thing to destroy my chances. Who knows? But the miserable situation of the laborer isn't the part of the hirer, the capitalist, the person who's trying. That's not it. So what we start to see is with this capitalist idea is if they can get it for free, they will. Like if they could get free labor, there would be part of that free labor. There is a lot of kind people, but there's a certain part where capitalism comes when it becomes corporations, and why we see this and why we see like 5 billionaires in the world is they're so out of touch with their people that their people are pissing in bottles. They're not taking breaks, because they're just numbers to these folks. And they're like, listen, if we allow people to take pee breaks and they just, then we lose this, and this. And we've got this much in, in value, and this much in debt, and this much, and we've got to pay these people, and it's this well-balanced ecosystem, and there's not really a whole lot of time for peeing. Maybe we could give them really cool peeing bottles, they could put stickers on them or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, our drivers, the drivers, can't, we have to move, produce. They're not worried if their drivers are white or black or male or female, straight or gay, they or them, trans or this or that. What they're worried about is production. They're not considering the otherness of the person at this point. That they're considering is, are they a good producer? And so why do I fill out an application? Why do they ask me all these questions? Is because they want to know, like, are you going to be normal, and are you going to help produce, and are you going to be a good representative of our company? And are you going to encourage people to buy and come back and buy again? Are you going to encourage people to do this? That's why people were like, well, I'm not sure. Everybody's got tattoos now, so it's not a big deal. But I remember when I first got tattoos, people were like, oh, they used to call hand tattoos job killers. It was because you just didn't want a certain type of person, and not certain type of other representing you. So like, we don't want anybody looking like they were in prison or anything doing questionable. We don't want those people to be a part of what we're doing. So that's why we see things like Amazon always in trouble, or Starbucks. So I always think Starbucks is the greatest contradiction, because sometimes in Starbucks you see so diverse. You go into my Starbucks right down the street, it's very diverse. Okay, we're talking male, female, black, white, Asian, culturally inclusive, sexually inclusive. I don't know what everybody believes there because I can't get into their minds, but I think it looks pretty inclusive. And then you find out like they're not really that great to their workers, but they get insurance, which is pretty cool. But now that's not enough, and they want more, and they want to unionize. And Starbucks is like, well, we got the flag. We're Starbucks. We know your order, your ridiculous, complicated order. We'll give it to you. We've got the pride flag. We love the gays, but we don't want to give everybody a livable wage. We don't want, maybe our insurance isn't as good as we say it is. Like I pay every year for insurance, and my insurance is, I'm going to be in bankruptcy, but I'm going to be in bankruptcy because I spent $5,000 rather than I spent $30,000. You know what I mean? It's just like, which one do you want to be in, super debt or a little bit of debt? Like what kind of debt? Choose your debt. And so I'm paying people basically to make sure, like, if I go to the hospital, I can maybe dig myself out a little bit quicker, but I'm still going to lose everything. You know what I mean? And I pay for insurance. I don't pay for dental insurance right now because I can't afford it. And I've had to pay $700 to have a tooth pulled because of all the years of smoking, unfortunately. I've got to keep my eyes because that's how I do things, and I've got to get some surgery done on my eyes this year that I put off. because of insurance. So it's a capital system. It's not, what people are afraid of is some sort of like Medicare for all. But if we did have Medicare for all, it might take longer to get things done, but I would be able to get the eye surgery. I'd be able to get the tooth pulled. Eventually, without worrying like, oh, will I be able to buy enough groceries for my kids and myself this week? You know what I mean? Like this is the system we're in, and I hope we'll wake up. I mean, it breaks my heart that I talk about capitalism and I'm encouraging us to think differently and about otherness and things like this, that the numbers of the people who are here drop. Like it's like this is something that we should all be talking about and facing, but it's hard. I was thinking about this the other day. It's like, why do people celebrate my mother? They love my mother because she loved so unconditionally, and she cared about people so much, and that they're making these plays about her. They made a film about her, won Oscars. You know, people write books about her. People hate her. People love her. All this kind of thing. But mostly, people have started to really love and respect and care about my mom and her legacy and who she was. And so you go, oh, I want to go watch a play about her. Oh, I want to read about her. Oh, she's got some old books. Oh, man, I'm always getting notes like, Jay, do you own the rights to your mother's music? I don't. Her ex-husband does, or not her ex-husband, her husband who she was married to. So write letters to Roe Messner if you want to figure that out. Hopefully he'll leave my mom's estate to me and my sister so we could eventually release that music and all that stuff. That would be great. But people sit back and they go, oh, we enjoy it. I mean, you lived through it and she was so wonderful. But my job is not to just celebrate my mother's life. My job is to make each one of us into a Tammy Faye. I mean, that's the point, is like, let's not look at Tammy Faye and go, whoa, wasn't she great? Let's impersonate. Let's be like Tammy Faye. Let's do that. Like when we look at Jesus, oh, Jesus was a good guy, but I'm a businessman. How many of those guys who love Jesus, but they're like just cutthroat business people, and they justify it somehow, I mean, camel, but it was actually just a small, you just got to have a camel that can really get low through that eye of the camel. They do all this stuff to explain it away. But nobody wants, the point is that we don't often want to put the work into it. And the fact is if we want humanity to be a better place for all of us, not just for the few of us, or not just for whatever group you're a part of, then we're going to have to do a lot of hard work. And that's what Revolution is here to say, is like, if we really want to practice grace, if we really want to practice compassion, there's going to be uncomfortable moments, there's going to be arguing, and there's going to be difficult talks, because we're going to have to learn to think differently, and we're going to have to accept other people who think differently, because they may have something we need to make this world a better place. And that's the best we can do, to care about each other. Like, that is the commandment of loving God with all your heart, and equally as important, loving your neighbor as yourself. This is it, This is why I'm anti-war. This is why I don't believe in violence. This is why, because I'm trying to love, everyone's my neighbor. I love my enemy in the midst of being my enemy. I don't love my enemy afterwards. Like, oh, we're not enemies anymore, so I love my enemy. See, this guy was my enemy, now we're buddies. I love my enemy in the midst of being my enemy. I love my persecutor in the midst of persecuting me. I love my bill collectors in the moments of them sending me all this crap of like, no one's censoring any comments, so that's your imagination, Joseph. I'm sorry, but that's the point. So that's what's happening. We don't even have anybody working on this. So it was YouTube, the monster YouTube. Here we are, and that's the thing, is even all of our communication skills, how we work with each other, Facebook and Twitter, and I mean, come on, folks. When we eat chocolate, there's very high likelihood that the people who made the chocolate are little children. Oh yeah, I mean, it's been great for the chocolate companies who make the chocolate, and those guys have been great, and they've employed a lot of people to deliver chocolate. It's just a little baby, the kids that have no parents, or their parents leave there so they can eat. And the farmers who are too poor to hire workers, so they have to bring in children to work for them for free and be slaves to do that. So there's your capitalism. All right. That's what it's doing. I'm not saying that, but we're in late stage capitalism right now, and it's destroying our lives. Anyway, So like I said, if they would take it, if they could get us to work for free, they would. They really would. I've noticed with the things in Hollywood, like when I helped with the Eyes of Tammy Faye for the film, and I talked to them, and they wanted me to come and give a talk in New York during the release of the film. Like, hey Jay, we want you to come give a talk, and Jessica will be there and do all that stuff. I'm like, great. It'll be $500. That's half of what I would usually pay for a talk. Let's do that. No, we don't want to pay you that. Can we pay you half of that? And I'm going like, you guys are like a film company, you know what I mean? And I'm like, no, you can't pay me half of that. I think this is like also my work. This is what I do. And this is what this is how I make a living. But it's also, talking about my family and stuff like that, can be tougher than just normal. So I didn't do it. I just had to make a decision. No, this isn't what I'm going to do. It's not worth it. And they weren't, they called my bluff and said, okay, this could really help your career, but we use each other to get ahead. And we don't want, it comes all down the bottom line. It's not like, oh, Tammy would love if we supported her son and helped him speak and he could help with, none of that. It was like bottom line. Here's the bottom line decision. That's the reality, folks. And one of the things we do with professionalism is we found a way to take away passion, and call it professionalism. And it becomes very much like religion because it becomes a type of dogma that's beyond question. So like if you're in work and you're having a professional talk and you get passionate about something, you feel something like, oh, we need to have a talk. You're out of line there, I'm working with a company, and in this company I'm working and asking some things to happen, and then this company is like, they don't like it when the punk rock part of me starts to come out because that's not how professionals talk. We don't get passionate. We don't say, let's be punk rock. We don't say things like that. You have to, button up the studded jacket and put on the tie, and we're gonna bullshit each other with a lot of fine language and be very passive aggressive in how we communicate. And this is how professionalism works. And we just take it hook, line, and sinker. Why? Because we need the job, because we need the work, because something's more important than, like, I got to do this, So what are we? We're trapped in a situation where we've got to be this way. Or we're radical enough to give it up and say, nope, I'm going to follow my convictions and lose it, and lose the job or lose the things or be seen as, unpredictable. What I found in life is when you start questioning things, it always takes years for people to be like, oh, you were on the right page. But before it was a troublemaker. I mean, I remember talking to pastors who are now all affirming, who thought I was just a troublemaker because I was asking them to be affirming and to be publicly affirming of the LGBTQ community. And they're like, oh, you're just And the funny thing is, some of them still this day, even though they agree with me, don't like me. They don't like me because I harshed their mellow. I wasn't professional enough about it. And I was too passionate about saying, like, you need to change. You need to think differently, the dogma, the dogma that's beyond question. And so it becomes almost like religion in this world, in our work life, and our capitalism. We become almost legalistic. I mean, I'm watching the numbers drop, in a minute, it's just going to be me and Joseph just sitting here, just talking together. Because that's all we have. Because we're worker bees. We're worker bees. We're ants. Now, so this is what I want to say, and you're going to see the point of this talk is coming right here, right now, and probably could have come a little bit earlier from the looks of it. But in the movie A Bug's Life, has anybody seen The Bug's Life, the movie? And with the ants, very cute movie. And then there's the guy who wants to be a beautiful butterfly, and there's the roly-polies are like, hey, and they do the circus, and it's very cute. Bug's Life. So there's a quote from The Bug's Life from Hopper, who's the grasshopper who gets the food from them every year takes the food offering to them to keep things going. Well, spoiler alert, watch Bug's Life. So these ants, they're ants, and these ants every year have to give these food to these grasshoppers. The grasshoppers said, we're going to kill you and we're going to destroy your whole lives. And they're like a biker gang, and they come in and they bully them, and And so every year they prepare the food and get ready, and then of course one little ant screws it all up, and they don't have the money food ready, and now they have to have twice the food. So they decide to hire some outside people to help them fight the grasshoppers. What they don't realize is they hire circus performers rather than like tough guys, because they think they're tough guys. Anyway, point is here. Um, so the Bug's Life, Hopper, this grasshopper, one of the guys, one of the ants, mouths off to one of the grasshoppers and says this stuff, and they fly away. And then the Hopper, they're all drinking beer and laughing and having fun, and they've got more than enough. And then the Hopper, the leader of the grasshoppers, finds the grasshopper who listened to the complaint of the ant, and he says this. Hopper says this: "You let one of those ants stand up to us, then they all might stand up. These puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping the ants in line." And so one of the things with like social media and things that happen here, one of the things I wrote here in this quote is, it's not about food, or you could add, it's not about race, it's not about religion, it's not about sexuality, it's not about politics, it's not about country, it's about keeping those humans in line. Because the more we argue and fight with each other, the more we're going to ignore each other at work, the more we're going to ignore each other to the system. We're fighting each other, so we're not going to join together to say, hey, the system's a little screwed up. I can't buy groceries anymore. I can't barely afford food anymore. I can't afford my gas anymore. And even with another job, I can't afford this. This is it's becoming impossible to live. There becomes to be more and more homeless people surrounded in my community. And what these millionaires who own the Facebooks and the Twitters and the Instagrams and all these things that we all enjoy and love and become addicted to, see, why do they throw things our ways and things that continue our racial bias or our political bias? Like, okay, well, feed them this. They're conservative, so keep them conservative. They're liberals, so keep them liberal. They're kind of racist, so keep things that are kind of passive aggressively racist towards them. Maybe let a few things slip through on accident to them that really make them mad. And so they do this because they know that the fact is, if we all came together and realized we were fighting over an external difference, that this external difference are based on our genitals, based on the color of our skin, based on the country that we grew up in, based on these things, we're keeping us so divided. Like if we didn't allow these external differences to kind of get in the way, and we were able to join together and go like, hey, there shouldn't be 5 billionaires. Either insurance needs to get better or medical care needs to get cheaper. Or everybody needs health care. The system's broken. There's got to be something here. Everybody should be able to have a house. People shouldn't be homeless. We shouldn't use that to, don't question, you stay in line and keep the talk the way we're supposed to talk, or you'll end up on the street like these people. That's part of capitalism, folks, and that's just the reality of it. It's a reality that some of us are so brainwashed and so conditioned to believe this that we can't think outside of that. And then you got people who come along and go like, well, look at Russia. People who abused communism and made communism not communism anymore, and they're, well, look at that. So we've got to, it's the enemy because we've got it right, and we've done. Look at us. But look at us. So the first black woman to go into an integrated school turned 69 years old today. She is only 69, so she's just about to be 70 years old. She's a year from that. She's 69 years today. I saw her speak about 10 years ago. And This was the first time in the South where school was integrated. That little black girl that you see and people yelling and screaming at her and things like that, she's 69 years old today. She's still alive. Okay, so we're talking that was 60 years ago, maybe 65, 3 years. We haven't grown and changed that much. We've just become more divided, more divided, more divided, more divided. You know, now there's just more levels of this otherness that begins merely as an external point of reference and ends up defining, ends up as a definitive, ends up as a definitive for how we identify something or someone. So this external point of reference ends up being definitive for how we identify someone and everything around them. And we make these big, bold, broad stroke judgments. You know, and I see it all the time with a lot of very liberal progressives who are like, you know, on Instagram who are like ex-Christian podcast or ex-Christian this or ex-Christian that or former evangelical. And they're so angry. And they're like, oh, what, you just want to be patted in the back because you're one of the good ones? I mean, they're angry at me. Like, I'm like, shit, man, I've been like defending folks forever and you're pissed off at me, you know? I remember for one of the first times I came to Seattle, someone was really angry. He's like, I used to believe what you believe, and I don't believe in that crap anymore. It's all, and I'm like, well, hey, buddy, what do you believe? And he's like, I went to Mark Driscoll's church and blah, blah. I'm like, I don't believe anything like that guy. But for that person, Christianity, that was the identifier. And so that's how everybody was. And that's when we get these identifiers and go, oh, that's what that is. And that's what that is. And that's who they are. So you have this Bugs Life thing, and so what I'm saying is if you are having a hard time reading between the lines, which I don't think you are, is that we outnumber the bullies, and we already outnumber them in communities, but we will really outnumber them if we are able to see past each other's identities in a way. And so this is where I go, like, they've seen past our identities to use us as workers and to profiteer off of us. So maybe we need to not see each other, fight over our identities anymore. Religious identities, race identities. We keep those things and we have hard conversations. And that's one of the things is like we have hurt and destroyed each other over identities and otherness. So reconciliation with the side of grace is desperately needed here. We've got to start working on reconciliation. So that's why at Revolution we talk about arguing well, disagreeing well, having tough conversations, is because reconciliation is the beginning. It's the first steps of this work. You know, this is how we get it. I mean, you can see even, you can see people pushing back, you can see people who don't like it and people who are scared and people are like, no, we must march down the line, and we must serve this master. We can't change this thing. We got to, no, we don't. We really, really don't. But we're afraid. I'm afraid. I get nervous about it. I don't want to be homeless. I want a dad. So I'm a dad. So there's times I compromise to be able to make sure that my kids are taken care of, make sure my kids eat. There's times I'm not super radical, or more radical than I want to be because I got to take care of my family. I have to be responsible. But there comes a time where you've got to speak up. You got to say something. You're seeing people destroyed. Why is Biden supporting a war, not calling for ceasefire? Because there's money involved. This doesn't have anything to do with human lives. People's lives are falling apart. People's lives are being destroyed. I mean, these children are dying and no one's going to call for a ceasefire in the government? Like liberals are all of a sudden like, oh, we've got our brothers and sisters in Israel, And it's like, listen, it's a government. It's another government. Israel is another government, and it's destroying people. Now they're destroying. There's these, but it's the people involved. Israel isn't Jewish people. I mean, there are Jewish people in Israel, but Israel is a government. It is a government, and these are governments, but these are people now. Now we're talking about dead people, dead people, dead people, and there's money involved in war. I saw a quote where George Bush was speaking, and he says, sometimes money speaks louder than peace. And it was kind of a Freudian slip, I guess, on his part, but he was saying, like, sometimes the money is moving so much that it's hard to broker peace because everybody's getting rich because those percentage of people are getting rich. And it's like that Bug's Life situation. So reconciliation with a side of grace is definitely needed. That is, if we ever want to be truly free from the situation we find ourselves in every day. And to the struggle that I continue to see more and more people share about every single day. The fight to stay alive, the fight to keep off the streets, the fight to make ends meet. And now it's become personal to me. Yeah, I mean, definitely. I've applied for like 15 jobs and, it's like nobody's hiring, and it's like, and I'm also watching a musical about my mother being put on Broadway. It's like I'm also working on a documentary about my family. It's like, so there's no, and like I said, like to come back to like with the slave owners where they tried to say black men and women and children were somehow not quite human, not quite this. They othered and they use it when it works. When it comes down to the bottom line, people go to any means necessary. And greed is a horrific thing. The need for greed and control is a horrific thing. That's why I've always preached grace, because legalism is a type of control and it controls a situation, So there you go. So what I'm trying to say is that we can't. No more othering. Easier said than done, am I right? But it needs to be said so it can begin to be heard. Like it's easier said than done, but we've got to start having these conversations. We've got to start having these talks with each other. Easier, so we can start to work. So we can work together. So we can see that there's a problem. So no more othering is like, yeah, Jay, good luck with that. Look at all of us and your flair and everything. You're othering yourself, Well, how do we start to see past these things then? How do we start to see each other, as humans, as people, and have these hard conversations? They want us to question each other and not them. They want us to argue with each other and not them. But so what I'm saying is our key is we'll continue to argue, but we're going to start to argue respectively. We're going to start arguing with love and compassion and grace and not scream at each other and not act, like we have to demand our way and that we have to be heard, but we're going to try to be heard and try to have a conversation and try to be adults with each other. And it doesn't always going to be work talk, but it's learning to listen and learning to talk well and communicate well and allowing for moments of passion, allowing for moments of heated moments, because that's humanity and human, and recognizing that as a human part of all of us we deal with. I yelled at somebody the other day over something and I went back and I apologized. I said, you know what? That wasn't fair. I am so sorry. That was out of line. Like there's going to be times where I might seem out of line that I don't come back and apologize because I don't feel that it was out of line. But there was a point at this point I was like, you know what? That was unfair and I'm sorry. It was the heat of the moment and I shouldn't have said it. That's when I think of Galatians 3:28. Where Paul says there is neither male nor female, nor Jew nor Gentile. Think about that, neither the Jew nor Gentile, with the war that's happening right now. Neither Jew nor Gentile. There's neither slave nor free. We are all one in Christ. And so my idea is how do we take the same gusto of them keeping us othering each other and go, okay, we're not going to other each other anymore, but we're going to listen and we're going to work together. And we're starting to see that. We're starting to see people come together and strike and get their needs met. We've seen it with the car companies. We're seeing it with different companies where people have said, you know what, we're going to get together as human beings and none of us are going to be treated this way, because we're going to come together despite our differences, because we all need to make a living. We all need to have proper health care. We all need to be able to afford to eat groceries. We all need to be able to do this. Even people in Hollywood were doing it, and saying, hey, we need to be paid equally. Hey, we need to be taken care of. The writers' strike. All these strikes that we see happening are people coming together, and we can find inspiration from that. But how the system wants this to push it is troublemakers. These are troublemakers. These people shouldn't be speaking out. These people shouldn't be talking. So, if they don't, if they don't, if they rebel in the wrong way, if they don't just get signs and walk in a circle, if they really start to get mad and come to the source, then we put tear gas on them, and then we call them troublemakers and criminals, and they're not practicing the order, so that's the contradictions that we're going to continuously find ourselves in. um, but we must affirm the human spirit, you know and it's hard because I know this is what made a lot of people uncomfortable. I know I've seen people who are friends and people near to me when I've done things and situations and meetings and people like that, people who are friends of mine, cringe when I say things that aren't supposed to be said or that are kind of pushing buttons. They literally physically watch their, like, cover their face, cringe type of thing. Um, but I just have this passion to speak, and this passion to try to speak the best truth I can, and if it's not truth, if it is effective, then that's, I'm willing to sit down and talk about that if it's not effective. But why we argue well is to continue to grow and to see clear. We argue well is because we don't want to go to war. We want to keep wars from happening. We want to get people to sit down and talk with each other. We want to see things like that happen. You know, you think about Jimmy Carter and being a peacemaker. He came into situations that were horrific. I think about the Troubles and how they solved the Troubles in Northern Ireland, and I read about Hume and Hum. I always get his name wrong. I'm really bad with H names. But like what they did, and you see, it's not easy. There's compromise involved, but there's also seeing each other as human beings. It comes down basically, like, to food. We all need food and water and shelter, and when we start, and not to be bombed and not to be killed and not to, have our lives taken away, and propaganda is not just militaries and countries, but it's also corporations and corporate thinking, and how they keep order in a country. And I guarantee you, that's why I don't want to vote for Joe or Trump, is I feel like they both make as much money off of war and that type of shit off of each other, and I just can't do that. Can't live that way anymore. So the point of today's talk is to hopefully liberate us from bondage. I think if you come to Revolution, you've already been seeking for liberation from, like, kind of religious bondage, but this is from, I guess, colonial and government bondage and the powers that be that kind of keep us in bondage. We've got to get to a point where we think differently. And we do things differently, but it's a fight, and it's going to require a lot of sacrifices on our parts, a lot of listening, a lot of self-denial, a lot of denying to ourselves, a lot of uncomfortable conversations to get there and to continue to move forward. So what will liberate us from this bondage? And that's what I hope this will encourage you to do and get you thinking, and try to stay in the good fight. Try to keep grace in there, and love in there, and compassion in there, and respect in there. Because I think we're all going through enough. We don't need to hurt each other anymore. We don't need to be arrogant and rude with each other. We need to find a new way to speak truth, and I will allow for other people's passion because I know what it feels like, but I feel like sometimes I have to be courteous of those who maybe aren't familiar with passion. And I'm all for compromise if it helps the group, if it helps everyone, if it helps humanity. I'm all for that. And contradiction if it helps the humans, it helps us as humans. And I think that was a great thing about the Good Friday Agreement, was there was a lot of people who all decided to be able to compromise for peace. You know, not everybody got what they want. You know, and that's part of life. But we might be able to get the basics if we were to realize that. But I don't know. I don't know if it's possible. Sometimes I do feel like I'm just dreaming or just spitting in the wind or just, you know, spiritual masturbation, whatever, you know, just delusions of grandeur. But I hope, and I'll continue to hope. I'd like to thank everybody for Revolution, supporting Revolution, helping Revolution. Your support does make this possible. It's really been helpful this past few months. You guys showed up when I thought the credits were about to roll, honestly. And I want to thank you for your financial support. And it's tax deductible, which I'm sure we could all use tax deductible. And I know money's tight, and I hate asking for money, but that's how I do this work. And right now, this is my sole job. And hopefully that won't be much longer, or hopefully it will be if things turn around and things get better. I don't know. I certainly would love to be able to do this full time, because I am passionate about this work and want to continue to build on it and do more of it. So thanks everybody for sticking with this and listening. And you know, I think it's also worth saying thanks to you, those who show respect and grace and appreciate, you know, like, it's easy to focus on the negative, and I just want to thank you guys who are saying thank you and being kind. You know, that really means a lot to me. All right, folks, once again, doing my best to argue well here. We need your support. We need to continue to do this. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate your words of kindness. This is a long, long haul, and you know, anything that we can do to change that would be great. Yeah, we really do need your financial support, and you guys have already showed up, so I hate continuing to ask, but that's just where we're at right now. To make it through November and December can sometimes be the hardest months, but that's why we nonprofits continuously mention tax breaks and things like that, because we really, really, really do need your support. And these are sometimes the toughest months, and you know, I'm just not very good at it. So, you know, I want to be here. I want to continue to do this, and I want next year to even be better. So hopefully we can do that. And so thank you for your support. Thank you for your donations. Thank you for your help. Thank you for encouraging this, and hopefully we can do this stuff. All right, folks, I'm tired. I got to go to a soccer game and be a dad. Love you guys. Have a great week. All right, bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. To make your 100% tax-deductible donation today, please visit revolutionchurch.com/donate. You can also learn more by clicking the donate section on the website.